$11.7 billion.
Wow.
That is the worldwide box office gross for the man we are digging into today. And, usually when you hear a number that big, you're thinking of a franchise star, a Robert Downey Jr., or a Tom Cruise.
Someone who built their career on one or two iconic characters.
Exactly. You are not necessarily thinking of a man who spent his 20s driving a forklift for Guinness and his 60s, well, punching people in the throat on airplanes.
It's a resume that it feels like a glitch in the Hollywood matrix. You have Liam Neeson, the man who brought this profound, weeping gravitas to Oskar Schindler. I mean, an iconic, historically heavy performance.
Right.
And then you have Liam Neeson, the Jerry action star, which is a term I suspect he absolutely hates, but can't really escape.
It's such a jarring contrast, and frankly, if you look at the trajectory, it just doesn't make any sense. Most actors, they start in action or maybe comedy, and they spend decades desperately trying to pivot to serious drama to get that Oscar before they retire.
Sure, that's the classic playbook.
Neeson did the exact opposite. He established himself as a heavyweight, Oscar-nominated dramatic actor first, and then, right when most actors start looking for those quiet, grandfatherly roles, he reinvents himself as the deadliest 60-year-old on the planet.
But that reinvention, I think, it wasn't just a career pivot. It was maybe a survival mechanism, both professionally and, personally.
Huh.
Our mission today is to figure out how a kid from Ballymena, Northern Ireland, who was genuinely moments away from becoming a physicist, ended up becoming this cultural paradox.
And we've pulled everything for this. We've got the extensive biographical records, career filmography, tons of interview transcripts over, 40 years?
Yeah, a huge range.
We're going to unpack that particular set of skills he talks about, which, spoiler alert, involves actual boxing championships and, weirdly, stealing performance techniques from radical preachers.
It's an incredible story.
Yeah.
But we also have to look at the darkness. I mean, this can't just be a puff piece. There is deep, profound personal tragedy here that shapes everything in his later career. There's some very confusing political activism. And of course, there is that controversy from 2019 that would have ended almost anyone else's career. Full stop.
It's a really complicated picture, and I think to understand the man who made Taken, you actually have to go all the way back to the man who made Guinness Crate's move.
That's exactly where it starts.
So let's drop in there. June 7th, 1952, Ballymena, County Antrim. If you aren't familiar with Northern Ireland in the mid-20th century, painting this picture is absolutely essential.
It is essential because Neeson himself has said explicitly that the conflict of that region is part of his DNA. He was raised Catholic in a town that was predominantly Protestant.
And in the context of the Troubles, that is not just a demographic detail.
No, not at all. It defined everything. It defined your safety, your opportunities, who you could be friends with, where you could walk at night. It defined your entire identity. And he described feeling like a second-class citizen in his own hometown.
That phrase, second-class citizen, it just carries so much weight. It implies a structural barrier, this feeling that the entire system isn't built for you. But looking at the records, his experience wasn't entirely black and white, was it? There seems to be this duality from the very start.
Exactly. And I think this duality is the key to his acting range later on. Because while he felt that sectarian tension on the streets, he went to a local technical college, which was mostly Protestant. And he said he never felt inferior or different inside those walls. So you have this young man holding two completely conflicting realities in his head at the same time. The structure of society is against me, but also these individual people I see every day are my friends.
That is such a difficult mental tightrope to walk, especially as a teenager. And he admits he was pretty naive about the politics of it all for a long time. He described himself as being out of touch with the history until 1972.
Ah, the year of Bloody Sunday.
Right, the massacre in Derry.
That was the wake-up call for so many people. It was this moment where the violence wasn't abstract anymore. It was real, it was televised, it was undeniable. For Neeson, that was it. When he saw fellow students organizing protests, it forced this political awakening.
He couldn't just be the guy focusing on his studies anymore.
No, you just couldn't. And you can't really separate his performance in a film like Michael Collins, 20-something years later from that moment in 1972. The anger he taps into for that role, it isn't synthetic, it's historical. It comes from witnessing that fracture in his own community.
But here's the detail that just blew my mind during the research. We talk about where actors learn their craft, Ardele, the actor studio, Lee Strasberg. Liam Neeson learned stage presence by sneaking into a church.
And not just any church.
No, the Free Presbyterian Church. to watch Ian Paisley.
The founder of the DUP, a hardline, fire and brimstone loyalist, the absolute political antithesis of everything Neeson as a Catholic was supposed to be.
It's like a young liberal arts student sneaking into a Maggie rally just to watch the speech delivery. It's just bizarre.
It is fascinating, isn't it? He wasn't there for the theology, not at all. He was there to study the mechanics of charisma. He called Paisley's preaching great acting. He saw this man Bible-thumping, sweating, commanding the room, holding 1,000 people in the palm of his hand. And he realized that public speaking, that leadership, it's a performance art.
So even as a teenager, he was deconstructing it.
Completely. He was analyzing the how rather than the what. He saw that if you have enough conviction in your delivery, the audience will follow you regardless of the text. And that is a very dangerous and a very powerful lesson for an actor to learn so young.
So while he's studying the mental game of performance, he's also locking in the physical game. We joke about the particular set of skills, but the boxing was very real.
Oh, very real. He started at 9 years old at the All Saints Youth Club. And this wasn't just hitting a bag to blow off steam. He was a regional champion. He won Ulster Amateur Senior boxing titles. He did this for 8 years, until he was 17.
And that has to change how you move through the world. I mean, fundamentally.
Completely. When you watch him in Taken or even The Grey, look at his feet. Look at the economy of his movement. He knows how to inhabit a physical space aggressively without looking chaotic or flailing.
That's not just fight choreography taught on a soundstage in Burbank.
No, that's muscle memory. That is years of discipline. He knows what it feels like to get hit, and more importantly, he knows how to throw a punch from his shoulder, not his elbow. It gives him this physical legitimacy that a lot of other actors have to fake.
It's just wild to think how easily we could have missed this version of him entirely. If you look at his what-if resume, his sliding doors moments, we were very, very close to getting Liam Neeson, the physicist.
It was a real possibility. In 1971, he was enrolled in physics and computer science at Queen's University, Belfast. He was a STEM guy.
I can't imagine it. You walk into a lecture hall, and Qui-Gon Jinn is about to teach you about thermodynamics.
But he left. The formal education didn't stick. And then there was the sports path. He played a game for Bohemian FC against Shamrock Rovers. He was a substitute, but he was on the pitch, a real match.
But no contract offered in the end.
No contract.
Yeah.
So physics didn't stick, football didn't pan out, and that leads to this period that I think grounds him the most. He goes to work at the Guinness Brewery.
Driving a forklift. And a lorry.
And I think that period of manual labor is just so crucial. He lived a real working-class life before the stage ever called. He isn't a Nepo baby. He isn't some drama school kid who has never had a callus on his hands.
Right.
When he plays these blue-collar heroes like the guy in the Commuter or the oil driller in The Grey, the audience buys it because he is actually clocked in. He's worn the boots. That kind of authenticity is something you just can't teach in drama school.
So the stage finally calls for real in 1976. He joins the Lyric Players Theatre in Belfast, then he's off to the Abbey Theatre in Dublin. And this isn't community theatre, this is the National Theatre of Ireland. He is doing the work.
He's doing the classics. And he plays Lenny Small in Of Mice and Men. That is the role that changes everything. Because in the audience, one night is the filmmaker John Boorman. He sees him, and that's it. That leads directly to Excalibur in 1981, with Neeson playing Sir Gawain.
And Excalibur's significant for his career, obviously, but probably far more significant for his personal life. He meets Helen Mirren.
Yes. And we cannot overstate her influence on him at that time. They lived together in the early 80s. At that point, she was already established, a force of nature. He was just this guy from Ballymena trying to figure it all out.
He said as much himself.
Oh, yeah. He later admitted in an interview with James Lipton that Mirren was instrumental in getting him an agent. She basically bridged the gap between working Irish actor and serious London talent. She saw his potential and essentially punched his ticket to the big leagues.
So he makes the move to Hollywood in '87. And looking at that early resume, it's a bit of a mess initially. I mean, a guest spot on Miami Vice.
Playing an IRA terrorist, naturally. Because in the 80s, if you had an Irish accent and looked intense, that was the role you got.
Then a horror director in The Deadpool with Clint Eastwood. And finally, the lead in Sam Raimi's Darkman in 1990.
And Darkman is a cult classic now, and Sam Raimi's a legend. But at the time, that wasn't an A-list launchpad. It showed he could carry a lead, sure, but he was hidden under bandages for half the movie. He was working, but he wasn't a star. He was that guy. You know, the guy you recognize but can't quite name.
That all changes in 1993. And strangely, it happens because he went back to the stage. He goes to Broadway, a revival of Anna Christie.
A Eugene O'Neill play.
Yeah.
Heavy stuff. And in the audience one night sits Steven Spielberg.
Spielberg is in the middle of casting Schindler's List, and we have to contextualize the competition here. This was the role in Hollywood. Kevin Costner and Mel Gibson, at that point arguably the biggest movie stars on Earth, they wanted this part. Warren Beatty actually auditioned for it.
These guys were box office gold. Certified A-listers.
Yeah.
And Spielberg picks the guy from Darkman. Because Neeson understood something fundamental about Oskar Schindler that the superstars missed. Neeson read the book by Thomas Keneally, and he latched onto this idea that Schindler wasn't some stoic, perfect hero. He was a seducer. He was a con man.
Right. Neeson famously called him a buffoon to the Nazis.
That was a genius insight. He said, if the Nazis were New Yorkers, Schindler was from Arkansas. He played him as this glad-handing bon vivant, a man the Nazis didn't quite take seriously, a drinking buddy, a guy with loose morals who liked women and money. That disarmed them.
If he'd played him as a righteous savior from the first scene,
it never would have worked. The Nazis never would have let him get away with it. Neeson played the con artist, which made the eventual heroism so utterly devastating because it came from such an unlikely, flawed place.
It is such a nuanced, brilliant choice. And the result is cinema history, Best Actor nomination. The film wins Best Picture. And crucially, it completely recategorized Liam Neeson in the eyes of the industry.
He was no longer just a working actor. He was a heavyweight, a serious dramatic force. He became the man you hire when you need historical weight and moral gravity.
Which brings us right into the mid-90s, the leading man and men of principle era.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. He basically becomes the face of historical figures with deep convictions. You've got Rob Roy, Michael Collins, Les Miserables.
Rob Roy is just such a classic hero role. Roger Ebert praised him, called him an effortless hero. And then Michael Collins, playing the Irish Revolutionary, that must have felt massive for him, personally.
Oh, absolutely. He won the Volpe Cup at the Venice Film Festival for that performance. Playing Collins, a figure of such monumental importance in Irish history, really allowed him to channel that DNA of the Troubles he always spoke about. He brought this fire, this ferocity to it. He wasn't just reciting lines. He was channeling his entire heritage.
And then, after establishing himself as this serious historical actor, he makes another turn, the transition to the blockbuster mentor. This is where my generation really met him. 1999, Star Wars, Episode I, The Phantom Menace, Qui-Gon Jinn.
And George Lucas was very specific about why he cast him. He called him a master actor that the other actors, especially the younger ones like Ewan McGregor, would naturally look up to. He needed someone who could command authority without ever shouting.
That's the key, that quiet authority.
And even though the movie got, let's say, mixed reviews.
To put it mildly.
Yeah, but nobody hated Qui-Gon. He grounded the film. He gave it a soul. And that role really set a template for the next decade of his career. If you needed a mentor, a father figure, or literally a god, you called Liam Neeson.
Literally a god. He played Zeus in Clash of the Titans.
He did, and he voiced Aslan the Lion in the Chronicles of Narnia films. He actually replaced Brian Cox in that role. It's all about the Neeson voice. It's calm, it's deep, it's authoritative, but there's this warm, fatherly undercurrent. It just makes you feel safe.
Which is what makes his villain turn in Batman.
Yeah.
He begins so brilliant. As Ra's al Ghul, he uses that exact same mentor voice, that same sense of safety and calm to explain to Bruce Wayne why he needs to destroy Gotham.
It's the perfect subversion of his own archetype. He is teaching Bruce, he's mentoring him, but the ultimate lesson is total destruction. It works because we, the audience, trust Liam Neeson. We want to believe him, even when he's telling us something monstrous.
But he wasn't just doing the serious, heavy stuff during this period. We have to talk about the comedy, or at least the romantic comedy. Love, Actually.
2003. A huge cultural touchstone. He plays Daniel, the widower, trying to connect with his stepson.
It's such a sweet, vulnerable role. And then the very next year, Kinsey, playing the controversial sexologist Alfred Kinsey, a total 180 from a Jedi Knight or an Irish Revolutionary.
That performance got him a Golden Globe nomination.
Yeah?
And let's not forget, he hosted Saturday Night Live.
The Appalachian Emergency Room sketch. It's an all-timer.
It is. He proved he had genuine comic timing.
Yeah.
He wasn't afraid to look ridiculous. And I think that willingness to play, to not take himself so seriously all the time, is actually what set him up for the biggest, most unexpected surprise of his career.
Okay, so here we are. It's the mid-2000s. He's established, he's respectable, he's a beloved actor, he's in his mid-50s. And usually in Hollywood, this is where things start to wind down. Maybe you take a TV procedural, maybe you play a few grandfathers.
Or maybe you take a meeting about a French-produced B-movie sounding action script by Luc Besson.
Taken.
And Neeson has been very, very open about this. He thought this movie was going straight to video. He took the job because he wanted to spend a few months in Paris and learn karate. In his mind, it was a paid vacation.
And the result was a global cultural phenomenon. It grossed over $223 million. It changed everything.
It really did.
I remember reading that Neeson joked the movie single-handedly put Americans off traveling to Europe.
It probably did. But more importantly, it created the Neeson season blueprint. He became an A-list action star in his late 50s and 60s. This is so incredibly rare. I mean, think about it. Usually, action stars try to become dramatic actors as they age to get some respect. He did the exact opposite.
And he found his partner in crime for this new phase, the director Jean-Claude Serra.
Yes. They became a team, unknown, nonstop, run all night, The Commuter, and most recently, Retribution. They basically created their own subgenre.
What is it? Liam Neeson is in a confined space or a confusing situation and has to solve it while punching people.
That's pretty much it. And it works. But within this action run, there's an outlier. There's The Gray from 2012, which I think is an absolute masterpiece.
I agree. It's so much more than the marketing suggests.
So much more. On the surface, it's Liam Neeson fights a pack of wolves. But really, it is a profound philosophical meditation on death, grief, masculinity, and the will to survive. And the reason that performance resonates so deeply, it brings us to the most tragic chapter of his life.
Yeah. We have to talk about Natasha Richardson.
They met on that Broadway production of Anna Christie back in 1993, the one Spielberg saw. They were married in 94. They were this beloved tower couple, but they seemed very grounded. They lived on an estate in Millbrook, New York, raised their two sons. They weren't in the tabloids for scandals. They were just living their lives.
And then, March 2009, the skiing accident in Quebec.
It was a traumatic brain injury. And it seemed so minor at first, a fall on a beginner slope. She was talking and laughing afterwards. But it turned fatal very, very quickly. She died shortly after. It was just so sudden and shocking. Neeson made the decision to donate her organs, which speaks volumes about his character even in that moment of unimaginable crisis.
I remember an interview from not long after it happened, maybe later that year, where he says he still speaks to her every day.
It's heartbreaking. And you can't help but look back at his work through that lens. If you watch his role in Love.Actually, where he plays a widower grieving his wife, and you watch it now after 2009, it just hits completely differently. It's art imitating life, or life imitating art in the absolute cruelest way.
And The Gray. That film came out just a few years after her death. The character he plays is dealing with the loss of his wife and is actually contemplating suicide right before the plane crash forces him to fight for life.
You can feel Neeson pouring his own reality, his own grief, into that survival struggle. He wasn't just acting in some of those scenes, he was processing. It adds so much weight to his entire late career action phase.
Yeah.
He wasn't just an action star anymore. He was a man who had survived something terrible, and you could see it etched in his eyes.
He threw himself into work after that. He became a U.S. citizen that same year, 2009, though he's always maintained his primary identity as Irish.
He just kept working, and he kept speaking out on issues he cared about. We mentioned the activism earlier. This is where the contradictions get really interesting again. Neeson is a very, very vocal opponent of unrestricted firearm ownership in the United States.
He is. He has called U.S. gun laws a disgrace, specifically after the Charlie Hebdo shootings in Paris.
And this is the big but. He makes millions upon millions of dollars starring in movies where his solution to every single problem is a gun.
It is the gun control paradox. And it's had real-world consequences for him, not just online debate.
It absolutely has. Perry USA, the gun manufacturer that actually supplied the prop firearms for the Taken films, called for a boycott of his movies. Their argument was essentially, you profit from our product on screen, but then you condemn it off screen. It raises a genuine question about the responsibility of an actor.
Does playing a character who uses violence endorse that violence? Neeson says, no, it's just fiction. The gun lobby says, yes, it's hypocrisy.
It's a complicated debate.
And he also never stopped caring about Northern Ireland. He became a huge supporter of integrated education, the idea of Catholics and Protestants learning in the same schools.
Which goes right back to his childhood, right back to those feelings of division. He fronted TV ads for the cause. His belief is that if you can get kids to learn together, they won't grow up to fight each other. It's about dismantling that second-class citizen feeling for the next generation.
He also took some considerable heat for narrating a video for Amnesty International that favored the legalization of abortion in Ireland.
Yeah, which some commentators immediately branded as anti-Catholic. So you see, he really doesn't shy away from these hot-button issues, even if it alienates parts of his core audience. He has convictions, and he voices them.
But the biggest alienation, the one moment that really threatened to end his career, that came in 2019, the interview for the film Cold Pursuit.
This was the Koch controversy.
Yeah.
And we need to be really precise here because the words matter so much. He was promoting Cold Pursuit, which is, of course, a revenge film. He was trying to explain the psychology of primal anger to a journalist from The Independent.
So to illustrate his point, he tells this story from 40 years prior. A close friend of his had been raped.
Right. And his first question to her was about the attacker. She said it was a black man. And Neeson then admitted in this interview, 40 years later, that for about a week, he walked around black areas with a Koch, which is a type of heavy weapon, hoping, in his exact words, that some black bastard would come out of a pub and have a go at him so he could kill him.
I remember the day this story dropped. The internet just exploded.
Rightfully so. I mean, it was a genuinely shocking admission. He was admitting to hunting innocent people based on the color of their skin because of a crime someone else committed. It was the absolute definition of racial profiling turned into a violent fantasy.
But the context of his admission was so strange, too. He wasn't bragging about it. He was clearly saying he was ashamed of it.
Yes. In the same interview, he called his own past behavior horrible and awful. He said he sought help from a priest and from friends at the time to snap out of it. He was trying to frame it as a lesson on toxic masculinity and how the cycle of revenge is poisonous. He's trying to say, look, I am a civilized man, but I had this incredible darkness in me, and it was wrong.
But that nuance was completely lost. The backlash was instant and massive. The red carpet premiere for Cold Pursuit was canceled. People were calling for him to be canceled entirely.
It was a career-critical moment. He went on Good Morning America with Robin Roberts to try and explain himself. He insisted he wasn't racist. He claimed he would have had the same reaction if the attacker had been a Scot or a Brit or a Lithuanian. He was trying to pivot the conversation away from race and onto the scary nature of these primal violent impulses.
And he did have some defenders, people like Whoopi Goldberg, Ralph Fiennes, the footballer John Barnes.
Yeah, their argument was essentially that we should be allowed to discuss our past mistakes and prejudices without being completely destroyed for them, provided we have clearly learned and grown from them. But it left a huge mark. It definitely changed the perception of him for a while.
And then in the most surreal twist of all, he appears in the TV show Atlanta in 2022.
Which was just brilliant. Donald Glover convinced him to come on and play a fictionalized version of himself in a bar, directly addressing the controversy. It was meta, it was uncomfortable, and it was a kind of genius. It showed he was willing to confront the ugliness of what he had said head on, rather than just hiding from it. He sat in the discomfort of his own mistake.
So he survived the controversy. And he just keeps working. The man does not stop.
He reunited with Scorsese for Silence in 2016. He did the powerful voice and motion capture work for The Monster in a Monster Calls, which is just a fantastic, heartbreaking film.
And looking ahead, he's starring in the Naked Gun reboot in 2025. He's playing Frank Drebin Jr.
That is the ultimate pivot, isn't it? From the grim avenger of Taken and Cold Pursuit all the way back to the slapstick comedy he dipped his toe into with SNL all those years ago. It shows that he just refuses to be boxed in, even now in his 70s.
It's also worth noting, just quickly, that his relationship with his hometown, Ballymena, had its own drama and resolution.
Oh, the Freedom of the Borough saga? Yeah. In 2000, they offered him the freedom of the town, their highest honor. But members of the DUP and Paisley's party objected because Neeson had made those comments about feeling like a second-class citizen as a Catholic.
He declined it.
He did. He declined it, citing the political tension. He basically said, look, I don't need this award if it's going to cause a fight in my hometown. But, you know, time heals. In 2013, he finally accepted it. It was a nice closing of the loop on that sectarian divide that shaped so much of his early life.
It really feels like his whole career is defined by that longevity and that incredible range. He's an officer of the British Empire. He has an honorary doctorate. He's grossed billions of dollars.
He's one of the very, very few actors who can seamlessly move between high art and pure popcorn entertainment.
Mm.
He can be the moral center of a Spielberg film and the guy punching Wolf in the face in a Joe Carnahan movie. That range is precisely why he's still so relevant.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we've gone from the Guinness forklift to the Jedi Council to the snowy mountains of Cold Pursuit. It's been a wild, complicated ride.
But there's one final what if that I think just haunts his entire late career.
What's that?
We talked about Schindler's List and Taken, but in 2012, Steven Spielberg came back to Liam Neeson. He wanted him to play Abraham Lincoln in his biopic, Lincoln.
He was actually cast.
He was attached to it for a long time. He did the research. He visited Washington, D.C. He read the letters. But eventually, Neeson pulled out. He told Spielberg he felt he was past his sell-by date. He thought he was too old for the role.
And who ended up replacing him?
Daniel Day-Lewis, who then went on to win his third Academy Award for Best Actor for that performance.
Wow.
So the question I want to leave you with is this. How different would the last decade of cinema look if Neeson had taken Lincoln? Would we have even had the Neeson season of action movies? Or would he have cemented himself, maybe once and for all, as the premier dramatic actor of his generation?
Or here's the other side of it. Did his choice to embrace that particular set of skills and become an action hero actually save his career's relevance in the modern era? Maybe being Brian Mills kept him in the public eye in a way that another Oscar-winning dramatic role just wouldn't have?
It is a fascinating trade-off.
Yeah.
He chose the gun-over-the-top hat, and the $11.7 billion box office suggests he might have been right.
Something to think about next time you see him answer a phone in a movie trailer. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We will catch you on the next one.